All right, let's take our Bibles and turn to Proverbs chapter 21. We'll do our fifth installment, part 5 of chapter 21. We're going through this one kind of slow, but hopefully we'll cover a lot tonight. Verse 14, a gift in secret pacifieth anger, and a reward in the bosom strong wrath. All right, let me read that again. A gift in secret pacifieth anger. So if there's somebody angry at you, one way to pacify that anger is to give them a gift in secret. Not publicly. That's not going to work. Because the Bible doesn't say a gift given in public will pacify anger. It says a gift given in secret, or a gift in secret pacifieth anger. And then here's a follow-up to that, a reward in the bosom strong wrath. In other words, a reward in the bosom means right here at someone's waist, they're, close to them, in someone's bosom means you give it right here. You walk somebody, hey, I got something for you. You're really, really close. You don't say, hey, I got something for you, and hold it up in front of their nose. No, that means you get really close to them and say, talk in their ear or something. Say, hey, I got something for you. Look down. Look here. It's for you. I appreciate it. Whatever. And so a reward in the bosom. And by the way, and that's not necessarily that's a reward. Reward and gift are not the same thing, okay? Reward is something that comes back to somebody because they've fulfilled some responsibility. And maybe it's just responsibility of being kind to you in the past and being a good neighbor to you. So you can give someone a reward if they've been good to you, if they've, or maybe if they should have given you a fat lip and didn't. It could be that kind of thing where they controlled and kept in ward their wrath. And anyway, a reward in the bosom, it pacifies strong wrath. See, the word pacify applies to both phrases. Now, to help you understand this a little bit better, just to give you a picturesque, I like to see things. A reward in the bosom means to give the gift to the person who is angry with you when you're so close that no one else can see between as you present it. See? Now, how do you do that? It's similar to the word secret. See, though a reward and gift are not the same, the way you give it is very similar. A gift in secret and a reward in the bosom. How you give it is key. If you give it outlandishly or publicly, it's not going to work. Why? They're going to think you're buying them off. They're going to think you're just, flattering them or something. So the word secret is a key word. And I love this word. It's come to mean something that just we lose sight of what it really means. And we just kind of get the result. All we know is the result of it, but we don't know what it means. So let me tell you the word secret. We talked about this when we just studied the word discreet, a year or so ago. Anyway, so secret. The word secret, there's a root word and a prefix. The prefix is se, S-E, which means apart. Okay? And then the root word is kret. And it comes from a word that means sift. So, I'm not going to expect anybody to remember this, but when I taught the word discreet means to sift away. In other words, when you have multiple things to consider about a situation, you sift through everything in your mind, in your thoughts, you sift it through, and you sift away the things that are not good or not wise. And so you'll be discreet. You'll sift away the things that don't need to be known, for example. So sometimes we learn things about people that, boy, you're itching to tell, but wait a minute. You need to be discreet. Sift away the things. Does anybody need to know that? No. Okay, then I'm not going to say it. See? If it's not anybody else's business, you sift it away. If it is someone's business, then you tell it. But if it's not, see? So, discreet and secret are very similar. Same root word. So, secret means sift apart. Now, sift apart is different from sift away. Sift away is you don't want it there. Sift apart means you sift. When you sift, Sometimes you sift stuff away, like when you sift the chaff from the wheat. You want to do it in such a way the wind blows the chaff away, and the wind driveth it away. Remember, the wicked are not sober like the chaff, which the wind driveth away. See? You don't want it to be a part of you. Now, to sift apart means to sift like you do, like you sort marbles or you sort socks. You don't say, oh, that's a different color sock, I'm throwing that away. No, you sift it apart. You separate it. Of course, that's called sorting. It's a little bit different word. But anyway, to sift means to sift in your mind facts and truths about something or situation, and you set it apart. Now, if it's apart, it's not for anybody else to know. Now, it's not a way where no one's ever going to know. No, you know, and then maybe one other person knows, but you and them are apart from everybody else. So, a gift in secret is when you go and you give to somebody apart from everybody else. It's just you and them. And you give them that gift in their bosom, up close. So you can whisper in their ear and tell them, hey, I appreciate such and such you've done for me. See, like I went to all the drivers Monday night. And it's not going to be secret anymore, but it was a secret, okay? But it's not going to be a secret after tonight. But I went to each of the drivers because the plan was, everybody come. I wanted the church to pay for the gas. It's our investment in you all. But the trip was so long, and we're here at the church, and I thought, well, we're here. I'd have to stop and go get more cash out of the office. And who wants to get up and go when they could just go home? So while everybody's busy talking and unloading, I went to the office and I grabbed 3 $10 bills. And I went to each person in private, in secret. See, now, I'm not trying to pacify anger in this case. I just wanted to settle something. I want to give a reward in the bosom. And it wasn't to pacify anger, but you do that when you show appreciation to somebody and they're angry with you. It's gonna pacify them. So remember, this is one of these principles. Let me tell you something. You're going to run into a lot of people in life. You're going to make a lot of people angry. So this one principle you want to learn and apply. I've learned it and applied it, and it works. All right? So, now, it says it pacifieth anger. It doesn't mean it solves all your relationships. It pacifies anger. See? It doesn't mean a mean, ruthless, cruel man is all of a sudden going to love you. It'll pacify his anger at least temporarily. See? He may be angry with you the next day, but he won't be angry that night. Okay? So, and depending on what a good job you are and how sincerely you are and how expressive you are, you can do a lot with a few words. You don't want to say too much, but you can just say, maybe sometimes it's just a manly look in the eye and just, hey, I appreciate. There's something you can appreciate. The word appreciate means to put a price to. Okay? You can appreciate, put a price on something in everybody's life. I don't care how wicked they are. You all know how I feel about Obama. But there are some things I can appreciate about him. Believe it or not. This is being recorded, right? Okay. There are some things I appreciate about Barack Obama. But there's so little that I don't want to mention it. But no, there are. But the things I appreciate is something that's for me to appreciate and learn. But he doesn't deserve, because of how wicked he is, for me to broadcast it. So I'm not going to. Some folks don't deserve to have their few things of value. He is alive, isn't he? And he's alive because of God allowed it, right? And God doesn't make junk. It's just we become junk. We're born junk, but what's possible for anybody to be, if they'll choose with their willpower, choose to trust in Christ, they have intrinsic value that if they trust in Christ, gets insured forever. If they don't, then they lose that intrinsic value. So anyway, all that. I didn't mean to go into all that. So I hope you understand that verse a little bit better when you read it in the future. But boy, learn to give gifts in secret when you need to pacify anger. But you can do it, excuse me, for other reasons also. All right, now, let's go to verse 15. It is joy to the just to do judgment, but destruction shall be to the workers of iniquity. All right, now, let's take the first clause. It is joy to the just to do judgment. There's no joy to anybody, notice, but to the just. Joy is to the just, because of what joy is. But anyway, it is joy to the just to do judgment. So, wicked people, if they do judgment, it's not joy to them. Why? Because they're not going to do good judgment. See? But it is joy to the just because just people, when they're being just, do good judgment. And the fact that they've done good judgment is joy. For example, there have been times when I remember we used to have workers at the college, and I remember a guy particularly, he overslept. And he's supposed to do a job, and I was supervisor, and he wasn't there. I had to go down to his dorm, which is a long ways, and go to his room, knock on the door, go in there, and find him, and I found him in his bed, dead asleep. Man, I'm tired too, but we got to get this work done. And now I try to wake him up, he won't wake up. I try and try. Have you ever been so dog tired that nobody can wake you up? I have. So I've had that experience before. So after a while, I gave up. I went back to work, really depressed, really frustrated, because now not only am I tired, I still got to do my work, because I was the kind of guy that worked all day. I've already put in way more than my hours. Already I deserve to go to bed, except I had a responsibility that I took on. The fact that I did extra work is not my boss's fault, so I can't just not do a job that is my job when I voluntarily did other work, and that got me tired. I still have a duty to do my job. So I'm really tired and frustrated because this guy, now I got to do his work because I'm responsible. I'm the supervisor. So I did his work, and I went to bed dog tired. Next day, he came to work. And, I told my boss about it. And so my boss said, well, bring him to the office, and we'll talk about it. So I brought him to the office. And my boss kind of said to him, I want to say his name because you know him, but I don't want to, because I love the guy. He's a great guy, just down-to-earth guy. The kind of guy, I tell you, right, I would love to have that man in our church today. I'd give, if I had $10,000, I'd give $10,000 to have that man in our church. He was just a great guy, hard worker, but like a lot of college students, they overdid it, overextended voluntarily in the ministry or something, and every once in a while they'd crash, and just no good. So, for a certain night. But anyway, so my boss talked to him about it, and, as he did, and I'm present, because I had to be, because I'm the accuser. And the more my boss talked to him, the sorrier I was that I even told my boss. Not because my boss was rough on him. No, he didn't. He kind of got him a little bit. And the guy was, yeah, I know. Here's what I know because I experienced it. He was already feeling bad all day when he woke up. See? And this is what I realized. When people mess up, if they're honest people, they're going to feel bad enough. See? It's only when someone rebels that you ever want to use real strength on them. At least that's what I've learned. So I'm not as strong and assertive as a lot of people are because I've seen a lot of people destroyed by strong and assertive people because they use their position, their power to chew someone out and make them feel 2 inches tall, and then what we wonder why people quit the ministry. See, so I tend to look and think and try to understand what someone's going through and what's going on in their life, and also whether they can handle something or not. Because I don't want to just steamroll people because I'm a steamroller. I'm not a steamroller. I'm a man. I'm a man who needs mercy from the Lord, and so therefore I'm going to have plenty of mercy. I want a big old bucket of mercy strapped to my back. Pockets full of it. See? Not so I can be run over and taken advantage of, but you know what? I don't mind being taken advantage of in the ministry, because if I get to do someone else's work, I get more rewards. So I'm not going to complain about that. If you don't want to get rewards, fine, I'll take your reward, So that's the way I look at it. Now, all that to say, I also, when I do good judgment, and I don't execute justice but show mercy, mercy is a judgment too. Mercy is judgment. Mercy's decision is a judgment or a sentence of no punishment, because I think you understand. I think you've learned. That is a judgment itself, see? And if a person has learned, isn't that the purpose of chastisement, to teach people to not do something? So if they learn not to do something without a spanking, then what's the spanking for? Then it's merely for venting. It's made to make you feel good. Then all of a sudden it's about you, when it's really about them. See what I'm saying? So, now, sometimes you need to spank so they don't think that, oh, now I know he's always going to be merciful. He's got pockets full. Yeah. But I'm going to make judgments, and sometimes I just won't give mercy, because I think mercy might be a bad judgment, because you might be taking advantage. And God's the same way. Did God show mercy to David?
Yeah.
King David? Great mercy. David never had to leave his throne, except temporarily. God didn't say, you can't be king. Look, compare David to Saul. David took advantage of a woman, committed adultery, and then murdered her husband to cover it up. What'd Saul do? He just spared the life of King Agag. Spared some sheep and disobeyed God's command about how to handle the Amalekites. Saul didn't do something God wanted to do. David did two things God didn't want him to do. And two things that are in the commandments. There's nothing in the commandments about what Saul did. But yet God rejected Saul from being king and was merciful to David. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to go here tonight,
Yeah.
but this has got my attention all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Now, do you know why? The difference is not what you do or what you don't do. The difference is the condition of the heart. Saul's condition was, I don't need to wait on Samuel the prophet. I can offer sacrifice myself. That was one thing he did wrong. He didn't wait. Even though Samuel didn't come at the appointed time, he came days later, hours. I forget how much time he lasted. But Saul waited for Samuel, and he did what he was supposed to do, but then he did what he was not supposed to do because of impatience. And he did that which did not pertain to him. He crossed over into the priestly line and area responsibility instead of maintaining his responsibility. Anyway, so the difference was the condition of the heart. Saul thought he knew better than God. Saul thought he knew better than Samuel. And he disobeyed. Blatant disobedience. And then he lied to cover it up. You say, wait a minute, didn't David blatantly commit adultery? No. That was a weakness. And he was afraid. He was trying to protect his kingdom. He thought, I got to stop this. He tried one way that would be nonviolent. But then he got between a rock and a hard place. And when you rock between a hard place, it's not because you're rebel, because like you're frantic. Oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? He did that out of impulse. It's like some people will lie because, I'm going to be in trouble if I tell the truth. They don't have an evil heart. Boy, I'm going to lie because I want to hurt so-and-so. No. So guess what? God's merciful to people who do things when they're between a rock and a hard place. Saul was not between a rock and a hard place. He didn't have something staring him in the eye when. Well, anyway, I don't have time to go. But the comparisons are striking in one way and very understandable in the other. So anyway, when you do good judgment, though, when you do just judgment, or when you do judgment and you're just about it, it is a joy. It's a joy. Okay. I want to give a lot of illustrations, but I better not because of time. You will learn that If you make good judgments about people, and then you're going to know it was good, and it'll be satisfying to you. You'll get a joy from it. All right, now let's look at the second phrase. But destruction shall be to the workers of iniquity. All right. Now, real quick, a reminder of what iniquity means. Iniquity means inequity. Okay, they just changed the E to an I. It's inequity. In other words, things that are not equal. When you don't do justice, when you don't have the balanced scales, and you do wrong, so those who treat people unequally shall be destroyed eventually. Why? Because you reap what you sow. And so eventually someone's going to do something to you that you don't think you deserve. But you can always reap more, and so if you do something wrong to somebody else, you're going to reap a whole lot more, which means it's going to lead to destruction. So, iniquity, destruction shall be to the workers of iniquity. Now, it didn't say those that do iniquity, it says the workers of iniquity. That means people work at being unequal. They plan, they scheme, and they put forth a lot of effort to be unfair, to be unjust. They plan, they scheme, they lie, and they blackmail, and they slander, and so forth. Or plot to steal, or plot to kill. They work iniquity, and therefore they're going to reap. They will be destroyed. Destruction will come to them. All right, let's go to verse 16. The man that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead. I like this verse too. It's very interesting. The man that wandereth out of the way of understanding. First, let's establish, what is the way of understanding? What do you think the way of understanding is?
Bible, scriptures.
Yep, that's good. The way of understanding is basically the way of the Lord, because all understanding comes from God. Because God is our rock. He is the rock. He's the foundation of everything. So He's under anything that stands. Anything that stands has God as its foundation. If God is not the foundation, it doesn't stand. A lie does not stand, because you can point out, oh, that's a lie. Okay, it doesn't stand. It falls on its face. Why? It's not rooted on the rock. It's not founded on the rock. So the way of the Lord, or the way of understanding, is the way of the Lord. It's the way of His statutes and His word, His principles. So, when a man wanders away from God's ways, or from the principles, biblical principles, he's going to end up in a place the opposite of what God gives. And God is the giver of life. So, if you wander away from the way of understanding, you're going to be on ground that has no standing. And therefore, you're not going to be counted among the living. You're going to remain in the congregation of the dead.
Yep.
See? So, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. So the ways of God, the ways of Christ, the ways of the Bible, God's principles, that's the way of understanding. And if we go in that way, we're going to live life. Jesus said, I have come that you might have life, and that you might have it more abundantly, you see. Why? Follow me. I'll make you fishers of men. If you're a fisher of men, you're gonna stand. See. The wicked shall not stand in the day in the congregation of the righteous, but the righteous can. See. And he that turneth many to righteousness shall shine as the stars forever and ever. Anyway, so the man that wandereth out of the way of understanding. Now, if you're out of the way of understanding, do you have understanding? No, you don't. Why? You think you understand something, but just because someone thinks they understand doesn't mean they understand. I've done that many times. I'll be teaching on something. Okay, do you understand that? Yeah. Okay, explain it to me. They can't explain it. Well, then you don't understand it. So some people think they understand something. So wicked people, sometimes they think they understand something, but they don't. See? Why? They've wandered out of the way of understanding. They're way over here. The way of understanding is over there, and they're way over here. They do not have understanding. And if they don't have understanding, they're not standing on anything solid, and their way is going to falter. And so, what's going to happen? they're going to remain in the congregation of the dead. Why? Because they've wandered out of the way of understanding, and the congregation of the living is over there, and they're over here. And they're going to remain in the congregation of the dead, those that do not have life because they don't walk in the ways of God. So, now, you say, preacher, what does that mean you lose your salvation? No. Look, it says, the man that wandereth. It doesn't say the man that doesn't have understanding. It says the man that wandereth out of the way. So it's talking about a saved person who wanders out of the way. He's going to remain in the congregation of the dead. What does that mean? Aren't the dead... I know you're probably thinking, doesn't that dead represent unsaved folks? You could say that, but unsaved and saved folks live together sometimes, don't they? Under the same roof. So it's not talking about your physical condition so much. Well, it is, but it's not, okay. It's not talking about your spiritual condition as it is your physical condition. In other words, here's a person who wanders out of the way of understanding. On purpose, they choose to leave the ways of God and to live for the world, or live for self, or to live for wicked purposes, whatever. They wander out. See, when you wander out of the way of understanding, you knew what the way of understanding was. You know what it is. But for selfish reasons, you wander out and say, I'm going to explore this. I want to live this way. What's going to happen is you're going to remain in the congregation of the dead. In other words, you're going to get in such habits, you're not going to be able to get back here unless you quit walking in the flesh. So, of course, this is Old Testament, but I think what this means is your flesh will remain in the congregation of the dead. Let me illustrate. Here's a person who grows up in church, and then he decides, I want to do my own thing. He chooses to wander out of the way of understanding. Does that mean he can never get right with God? No. What does it mean when it says he shall remain in the congregation of the dead? Does that mean he's going to go to hell and stand before God in judgment? No, he's saved. So we have to eliminate things based on other principles. So this helps. So once we eliminate things, there's only one thing left. And here's what I believe it means. I believe it means their carcass, their body, their flesh will remain in the congregation of the dead. For example, here's a guy that wanders away from God. He goes out and gets worldly, gets a bunch of tattoos. Guess what? He's going to remain in the congregation of the dead, and that his flesh is going to have those tattoos. Or here's a person who can go out drinking or doing drugs. Guess what? He's going to mess up his mind, his liver, or something. Guess what? That body, he's going to remain in the congregation of the dead. The flesh is dead. That's why we're supposed to reckon ourselves dead to sin. Because sin's going to have an effect on you when you come over here, and it'll have a lasting effect of this life, but this life only. And that's the congregation of the dead, where they're congregated. They're congregated there now. It's not talking about the congregated, the eternally dead. So you'll remain. In other words, whenever you live, okay, like Romans says, to whomsoever you yield your members as servants to obey, his servants ye are. See? That's why some people, when they wander, they develop habits, and they have those habits the rest of their life sometimes. It doesn't mean they can never break them, but they're going to have some habits. See? So you're going to remain in the congregation of the dead in some way, some capacity. So, the man that wanders away from God's ways will most definitely remain in the congregation. You're going to remain in the congregation of the unsaved of this world, which means your flesh is going to be like theirs. See? So, I've seen so many people, they're limited in how they can serve God. How are they limited? It's something about their flesh. It's always something about their flesh. Their spirit is willing, but their flesh, there's something wrong with their flesh, either physically or their fleshly nature. One or the other, and they'll be that way all their life. Their spirit indeed is willing, and they can come back to church, but they'll always be limited. See? So, did David limit himself? The rest of his kingdom? Did the rest of David's reign, was it affected by his sin with Bathsheba and the sin against Uriah? Yeah, it was. In fact, God told him from henceforth, was it him or maybe somebody else? Anyway, no, it was somebody else. Asa, I think it's Asa. Asa went and joined up with somebody else and some heathen, I think Syrians, to fight against Israel. And God said, henceforth thou shalt have wars. And he had wars the rest of his reign, if I remember correctly. Anyway, David, if you look at David's life, yeah, he never had rest from his enemies till he got old. In fact, even when he got old, he was still trying to fight, and he fainted and almost got killed by someone. Someone had to come and rescue some giant, or someone was about to kill David, somebody, and they rescued David's life and said, look, you can't go to battle with us anymore. David had to fight until he was told not to fight anymore, because we don't want the lamp of Israel extinguished. You're a light. You're a leader. We don't want you. And so they wouldn't let him fight. The army wouldn't let him fight with him anymore. He was getting too old. So David had to fight. He didn't have peace. Solomon had peace all his reign. David could have had that because he conquered his enemies really quick early on, but because of his sin, God allowed other problems to keep coming up. And that's what we need to fear. Let's not wander away from the way of understanding. Otherwise, God's going to allow battles and things to come in our life that's going to keep us fighting. You're going to have to fight the flesh more than you've ever had to fight it before. You'll have to fight it the rest of your life because you're going to remain in the congregation of the dead. Okay, so let's be careful about that. Let's not wander from the way of understanding. All right, verse 17. He that loveth pleasure, oh, this is a good one too. He that loveth pleasure shall be a poor man. He that loveth wine and oil shall not be rich. All right, let's take the first clause. He that loveth pleasure shall be a poor man. There is no end to the things that a person can do for pleasure. So, if you love pleasure, you will not spend enough time on your responsibilities because you're pursuing pleasure. And the result will be you'll end up being poor. It says shall be. It doesn't mean you are right away, but you shall be. In other words, the toll, it'll take a toll on you. And the more you give yourself to pleasure, the more and faster you're going to get to a place of poverty. Okay? Or a place where you're poor. All right? Why? Because, here's a guy he's late to work because he's too busy playing a video game. Can't stop, Oh, I'm almost what do they call it? Level 10 or whatever, And oh man, well, I don't have time to take a shower, but I'll just clean up, I'll just sponge bathe, whatever. And so they play some more, and then they're, let's see, I was going to walk to work, save gas, but now I'm going to have to drive. Okay, well if I'm going to drive, I got more time. And they make excuses, and pretty soon, people that live, why? Because of pleasure, they will be a poor man, because when they could have been getting to work early, or maybe doing something extra and pleasing their boss, maybe getting a raise, or being asked, hey, be a supervisor or whatever, and get a better pay, or getting recommended to be in charge of a department, or taking over managing another place that the company owns, but at another location, and get a much paying job, because you stay a journeyman, sort of, you might say, doing the low-ranking work. Why? Because you're not excelling, because you're giving yourself to pleasure. All right? Now, the next phrase, he that loveth wine, is very similar, but a little bit different. He that loveth wine and oil shall not be rich. Okay? He that loveth wine and oil shall not be rich. Now, so how is wine and oil, how are those examples of loving pleasure? All right, if a person loves wine, that means, okay, let me first of all make a difference between enjoying something. See, pleasure is when something pleases you. It gives you pleasure. And you can enjoy that. You can enjoy pleasures. But enjoying pleasures and loving pleasures is two different things. And it's real important. So, what does basically love mean? Here's what I've come to. You've heard me teach on hate, right?
Yeah.
Well, when we did the etymology of hate, what did hate mean?
Yes.
Remember that?
Choose.
Hate means to not choose something. To reject. No, to choose. You choose something else, you don't choose that. See, God chose Jacob rather than Esau. So he hated Esau. Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. Did God have vehement disdain for Esau? No. Because God actually blessed him. So when he and Jacob met, hey, God's blessed me. Brother, don't you keep that gift you've sent me. I'm fine. I'm good. God's been good to me. And they loved each other, hugged each other, kissed each other, and it was great. It was wonderful. But Esau was not chosen to be the one through whom Christ would come. He didn't have that birthright anymore. He sold it. He didn't get the blessing, so he was not in the lineage of Christ. Jacob was. So God chose Jacob, did not choose Esau. So if hate means to not choose, love means to choose. God so loved the world means he chose to save the world. He chose to take our sin upon us. He chose to be our Savior. He chose to revalue us and pay the debt we owe, hoping we'd just trust him. That's what love is. Love is when you choose to think of someone else. And you could think of a lot of things, but you choose to think of them and consider them and do something for them. But it's the choice. That's what it's all about. See? So love means to choose. So loving is a choice. Enjoying, though, enjoying is not choosing. Enjoying is the result of having chosen something that was a good choice. See? If you choose well, then you enjoy your choice. So he that loveth wine and oil, does that mean we should never enjoy wine? And by the way, what does it mean, wine here? It means fruit of the vine. Okay? Now, those that choose wine, and they choose that rather than a responsibility or a duty, that means they're going to give themselves to it. And oil is symbolic of oil is, what do? You remember the widow? I've only got so much meal or flour or whatever, and oil. Oil is like the basis for food. We cook with it. It's essential for cooking. It's essential for baking and making things. Oil is like the glue that holds stuff together. It's either glue that holds stuff together, or it's the medium that divides a pan from food so it doesn't burn and stick. But anyway, oil is a very important thing. So if you love it, in other words, you choose it over other things like responsibilities, that's a guy who's sitting and drinking all the time. And I don't care if it's even just grape juice all the time. Welch's grape juice, unfermented. If you choose that all the time, eventually you're going to run out of fresh stuff. Back in those days they didn't have refrigerators. So eventually you run out. If you choose wine and you give that your focus, you're going to run out of the good stuff and end up having to drink the old stuff in order to keep having wine. And then you're going to get drunk. See? So, and then when you're drunk, you can't show up to work. So, he that loveth wine and oil shall not be rich, because same thing, you give yourself to it, and you choose it over other things. You choose that rather than going to work. You choose that rather than take care of responsibilities. And you choose oil and baking and cooking and doing things and being a glutton, and then you're overweight and you can't work as hard, and the boss decides to hire some young whippersnapper that wears half your weight, and then you wonder, oh man, that's what it means. So don't choose those things because they give you pleasure. Enjoy pleasure when it comes. Enjoy pleasure as a byproduct, but don't seek it. Seek to fulfill your responsibilities, and God will bring you pleasure. He'll bring it to you in the right doses. Don't give yourself to it. Don't choose it all the time. Look, we live in a country that chooses pleasure. See? People most of the choices we make are to please this right here, or to please these, or to please these, and other things. Man basically lives for the pleasure to please himself, his flesh, his body, unless we discipline ourselves. And this is the secret to living a life for Christ. You discipline yourself, and instead of seeking to please your flesh, you try to do things. Sometimes it means you got to sacrifice when you don't feel like doing things. So like going on this last trip, some folks had to sacrifice in some ways because it was painful to sit in a car for so long. For some, it was painful to have to keep your eyes open for so long. You can't take a break because you got people's lives in the balance. And that's not necessarily pleasing to the flesh. But you don't choose to please the flesh. You choose responsibility. And I'll guarantee you, everybody that drove on those trips was glad they went. See, they made a good choice. I don't think they said, man, this is fun being the driver. No. I don't think so. But they got the results because they fulfilled an obligation. They got to go someplace, see some things, hear some things, witness some things. They were a blessing. They got to feel things they've never felt before. And and that's the reason they got to enjoy. See, they got the result. And so that's a good example of what we just experienced. All right. Hope you got a little bit of wisdom tonight. And let's pray. Father, thank you for your word. And I pray that it has fallen on, I trust it has fallen on hungry ears and hearts. And I pray that you'll help us keep some of these principles fresh in our minds so that it'll help us in our day-to-day living. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.